So, one thing that I used to carry a very strong belief system toward was the fact that men and women were equal, or they should be equal. I especially felt this way when I was in relationships and when I was working. So, when I worked in corporate America, I would oftentimes look for the areas where men and women were not equal so that I could go and try to level out that playing field. And it was not until I really got out of survival mode. It wasn't until I got out of the wounded masculine and I stopped neglecting my feminine. I stopped neglecting the goddess that resides within me. It wasn't until I stopped doing those things that I realized there is no equality when it comes down to the genders. It's not about equality. It absolutely is about complementing for sure. But women, in my opinion, really, we need to stop comparing ourselves to men. There is no comparison, sis. There is no comparison. And I do believe that a part of the system, patriarchy, all of those things, I do absolutely believe that this equality, some aspects of the feminist movement, things of that nature, I do feel like that is something that was created and was designed for us still underneath the lens of idolizing men and looking for validation from men. And it really is not until, and it's really not until you remove that. It's not until you remove yourself from that game that you start really thriving in life as a woman. It's not until you start looking at your life from the perspective of, I have my own legacy to build. It isn't about his legacy. It isn't just about am I birthing children for him? Or am I carrying on his last name? Or am I doing things to be a good wife, a good girlfriend, a good partner, whatever? It isn't just about how am I here to benefit men. It is about how am I here to elevate myself, which will therefore elevate my own legacy, elevate the people whose lives I impact. The way that you would elevate yourself is going to look different from the way a man would elevate himself. The way that you will establish a legacy or the way that you would decide to create your world. All of this is totally different. And that is what really led me to believe that there is no such thing as equality when it comes down to men and women, but it really shouldn't be. Because when you know who you are as a woman, when you understand how powerful you are, when you understand that you have an eternal life force and it doesn't matter if you decided to have children or not have children, that doesn't matter. As long as you are a natural born woman, you were born with a womb. That means that you are the closest aspect to God, the ultimate creator. But when I was a Christian, that was something that we were taught quite regularly. That is the story of Jesus, was that this woman was able to give life without the insertion of a physical partner. So even if you are a woman who is a believer of Christ, or if you have just any other religious belief system, even if you take into account that the fact that as a woman you are able to create life, you are able to turn things in its smallest form and you can amplify them, and you do not need external assistance. Everything that is already within you is what is necessary. That's a power play, sis. That's power. That's the reason why I'm such an advocate for us, for Black women, getting back to our goddess statuses, getting back to our goddess energy. And it's no disrespect toward other women of other races and nationalities. I just resonate with a Black woman because I'm a Black woman. So if you have found yourself to be a woman that is in constant comparison, or if you feel like you are fighting for equality, I really want to urge you to look at this from a different perspective. Look at this from the perspective of, you are so powerful in who you are as a woman. You were birthed with one of the biggest blessings, and that is the natural ability to create whatever it is that you want. Why would you then reduce yourself to comparison? Why would you reduce yourself to comparison of anything? And I'm going to throw this in here as well. When we really stop looking at some of these terms, some of these labels that people are throwing around the internet like it is candy. Narcissism, you are such a narcissist. In my opinion, as women, we actually need to probably tap a little bit more into that side of the spectrum, because there are more of us that have made ourselves martyrs. There's more of us that have made ourselves so, susceptible and broken down to lower vibrating energies, to people who really do hold narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder. We have made ourselves so available to them simply because we were not selfish enough, because we were not narcissistic enough. Now, my personal belief system is that we all hold a bit of narcissism. And there's actually data to back that up. So I'm not just, saying it out my ass. Like, there are studies that have shown that everyone actually has that sense of narcissism. It's just a matter of how far and how extreme do you go. So when we start changing some of these narratives that we have been conditioned to believe as women, I think that is the thing that's really going to help us get to a space, get to a point where we would not even, we would consider it to be offensive to compare ourselves to a man. We would consider, that's where I've gotten to in my life, ladies. I'm gonna be honest with you. I used to have this issue so bad where I would constantly be in a low-key competition, and I didn't realize that that's what it was. In my mind, I just wanted to be equal. I wanted to make sure to receive equal pay. I wanted equal rights. I wanted, to be treated fairly at work and amongst the friends. I didn't want to just be viewed as like an object, right? Like a sexual object. And then when I started really working on healing myself, when I really started getting more comfortable, when I really started understanding who I was as a woman and what that means. Being a woman is not something that we should be, stressing out about. We should actually be basking and praising the divine creator, the fact that we got blessed to be women. And I think patriarchy obviously understood the value of what a woman brought. And that is the reason why we deal now and have some of the issues that we have. But it is totally possible for you to create your own internal matriarch. It's completely possible for you to make the decision that you're going to operate your life every day, being the highest authority, being the matriarch of your world, being the goddess of your own universe. If you are still bound by some of the belief systems that, it is horrible to be narcissist. I'm going to be honest with you. Narcissists are winning. If we're being honest with ourselves, ladies, if you took that aspect of narcissism and you coupled it with your divinity, you coupled it with the fact that you do have a good spirit, that you do have an excellent heart, that you are a woman of integrity, that you are a divine creator because you operate in goddess energy. But if you wrap that in with that hint of narcissism, imagine how great of a life you could have. In order for you to do that, though, you cannot continue to subscribe to the belief that you are supposed to be equal to a man. I will go as far as to say I personally feel that I'm better than. Okay, I'm gonna keep it honest. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I think I'm better than Katt Williams. For those of you who don't know who he is, he's a very popular comedian. Katt Williams made a comment saying that he only keeps women around him. He only has a female staff. And some people would look at that and they would say that, okay, he's just doing that because he wants eye candy around him. The minute that I heard that, my spirit said he understands feminine energy. He understands creator energy. And with his job in particular, with his career, he has to constantly be in a state of creation. He has to always think of the next funny joke that, how do I turn this outcome or this situation into something that will propel my comedic career? Women and being around women, being in our energy is what is going to help continue to build and propel that. So men fully get our value. We just don't get our value because we get caught up in comparison. We get caught up in trying to, fight for equality as opposed to just tapping into our divinity. We get caught up in this idea that, the push should be, let's have women make equal amounts of money for the same jobs. Why isn't the push, let's get women in a state of creation so that they can be out here creating the lives that they wanted, which has no cap. There isn't a max or inequality. When you start looking at life like that, sis, it is tea. And I will tell you, the way that doors have opened up since, myself and many people, many women that I know that, I have shared some of my dialogue with, life just looks so much different and is so much better. So I definitely want to encourage you, sis. Like, if you are someone who has been fighting for women's rights, I commend you and I appreciate you as a woman. I totally appreciate it. I also, though, encourage that on top of us fighting for women's rights, on top of us looking for the equality, to happen, I think what's more important than that is for us to start recognizing that being a woman, it puts you in positions that many men don't have immediate access to. There is a reason why during Egyptian times and other ancient civilization times, there were women that were surrounded around the kings and the pharaohs. They were the oracles. They were the people that, the men would go to for the guidance, for the medicine, for the healing. Let's get back into that. But when we start getting back to that world, that's when I honestly believe that we will start to look for this, or we'll start to see this, I'm going to say equality, that I think a lot of women are still looking for. The equality sits inside of you. It sits within you. It sits within your creative abilities. It sits within your genius. It sits within your spiritual gift. Patriarch will tell you different. Patriarch will tell you that you should be out here marching. You should be out here fighting side by side. That especially Black women, we need to be out here fighting with our men. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Not I, Sam I am. And I'm going to tell you, it is because I understand that my power is housed within. That is the reason why I was built the way I was built. That's the reason why you were built the way you were built. That's why. Because it wasn't your job. It's never been your job. And, they'll like to talk about, oh, well, what about the female warriors and the Amazonians and, the African tribes that had women as warriors? And that may have been their role. And I'm going to be honest with you, I question if that's really true. I don't know if it's true or not, so I'm not going to speak. Listen, I'm not going to speak on what I don't know. It could be true. It could not be true. All I know is that right now, today in 2025, you are probably far better off tapping into your internal gifts, tapping into your divinity, than you are trying to get out there and slug it in the mud with a man so that you can fight for women's rights and equality. You are probably better off. You're probably safer. Your mental state would be better. Your emotional state would be better. So I want you to really think about who you are. Think about your womanhood from that space of, I am not equal to man, nor do I need to be, nor do I want to be, nor should I be, because I am this energy, because I am life force energy, because I am creator energy, because it's easy. I have such a close connection to divine power, and I'm able to utilize all of that power that I have to create equality, to create balance is more so what I like to call it, to create balance in my own world. When more women start looking at it and doing it that way, that is where you will start seeing more, quote, equality.